Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter, and this is Cookies in Canvas for Kids. All right, so today we're painting Safari Sunset, and I'm eating some delicious oatmeal raisin cookies. So let's paint our canvas and eat our cookies. All right, so what we're going to be using for materials today is a stretched and primed 16 by 20 canvas. You could certainly switch up the size if you want, but that's what I'm going to be using. I'll be using acrylic paint today. The colors that I am using are titanium white, chrome yellow, fluorescent orange, fire red, burnt umber, which I'll call brown, and Mars black. And of course you can switch up the colors if you'd like, but that's what I'm using. I'm going to be using a couple of tools today. I have a standard number 2 pencil, and then I have 2 brushes that I'm using. I'm using a 1/2 inch wide bristle brush, and I'm also using a number 4 round brush. And of course you could switch those up. I'm going to call them small and large throughout the painting process as well. You're going to need a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, I'm going to provide you with a couple of additional resources for you while you're painting. The first of them is a link where you could purchase this same paint kit that I'm using, from the large canvas to the same colors to the same brushes. So that's there for you. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as a visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's written step-by-step instructions as well that you could download and use. But the most important thing that you've got down below this video is a recipe for my delicious oatmeal raisin cookies. And that's all we're going to need today. All right, so what we're going to do for the first step is we are drawing a horizon line with our pencil. So what you're going to do is you're going to come up about 2 inches or so on the left-hand side, and then do the same thing on the right-hand side. They don't have to be even, so don't worry about that. And then you're just going to connect them with a line. It doesn't have to be a straight line. You just want a stopping point for the next step. And that's all we're going to do for the first step. All right, so what we're going to be doing for the next step is we're going to be painting the sky. I'm going to be using the large bristle brush, and the colors that I'm using are white, yellow, orange, red, and brown. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to start with my sun, and I'm going to work my way away from the sun, and I'm going to have my sky lighter at the bottom and darker at the top. So I'm going to be using more, obviously I'll be using white for the sun, and then yellow as like a glow around it, and then I'll get into using some orange, and then as I go up the sky, that's when I'm going to start using more red and brown and get it to go nice and dark. So as you're doing this, you can use a good amount of paint, but I wouldn't recommend using a ton of paint, because what will happen if you use a ton of paint is you're going to want to blend, and then your sky will all be one color. So if you back off on the quantity of paint, you can add those colors as you want to, and then you won't over blend it. So just, you know, if you get into an area where like, oh my God, I have so much paint and it's just blending so much, just wash and dry your brush and just kind of start over. So how I'm going to start this is I'm going to start with white paint. I'm going to have my sun a little bit above my horizon line, and I want a really big area with this white paint. So I'm just kind of getting a large wet area of white paint, like the size of like a big melon. So like maybe a cantaloupe. Yeah, that would be about that size. So once I've got it really, really big, now I'm going to pick up white and yellow, and I'm going to start, I'm going left to right, back and forth, left to right, and I'm almost getting it to come into that sun area a little bit, almost overlapping it, as if these are like just clouds coming away or in front of or nearby that sun as it's setting. Now I'm not going to wash my brush, and I'm picking up orange and yellow, And now I'm going to get this orange and yellow to start to work its way in towards that sun area. And it's okay if you go over the sun area as long as you can kind of keep that the brightest area. There are orange suns that set, there's yellow that are all glowy in the summertime. This is a beautiful hot summer sunset. It can really be as, you know, orange or red or yellow as you want it to be. I like to have mine a little bit more white in the middle so it looks more glowy. But if yours ends up being more on the yellow side or more on the orange side, that's okay too. And as I get towards these edges, I'm going to be using a little bit more paint just so I can get it nice and a solid color. And then once I move above that sun, I'm going to start to use a little bit of red. And you can see I've got like a cloud just going right in front of that sun. It's super cool how it can do that. Mother Nature allows for these really neat things to happen. And as I work my way up here, I just dipped my brush in orange and red, and it's going to start to get darker and darker, but I want to make sure that I've got the whole area painted in. So as you're doing this, you can just imagine yourself, you're in maybe the hot Africa savanna, and you're, you know, just listening to all the creatures that are starting to come out at night. We're going to be painting some cool giraffes and a rhino, because I know that those two animals get along. There's a lot of African animals that don't get along together that we should not paint together on our canvases, like lions or hippos. I don't think lions and hippos like giraffes and rhinos. Maybe they like them to eat, but I don't think they like them to just hang out on a nice summer evening. But we're going to have fun painting our own nice creatures that get along. And you can see I just kind of been going back, making sure I've got all those areas before I start working into my really dark colors. So I just put some more orange and red on my brush. And now I'm going to get really quite dark as I go up towards the top. And again, you can have yours as light or as dark or as colorful as you want. I'm just going for a really warm summer night, and you know, it's just going to be a big drama in my sky. I like having dramatic type skies. So I'm just going to kind of keep going. I just picked up a little bit of brown, so now it's really going to get nice and dark over here. And I'm still just using that left to right brush stroke. So you could do circles or swirls or whatever you want. If you want there to look like there's clouds, you're more than welcome to do so. I just added some yellow and white onto my brush so I could get this to kind of blend in a little bit without it looking too disconnected. And you can always go back to previous areas and fiddle with them as they dry. If they're doing something that you don't want them to, you can certainly go back and make alterations or, you know, change it up a little bit. I'm going to pick up some more red and brown at this point, get this top nice and dark. And then we are going to use this same brush for the next step. So once you get your beautiful sky all nice and painted in, you're going to wash and dry this brush. I have just a teeny little bit left to go. And some people do like to paint the edges or the sides of their canvas. I am one of those people. So if you want to do the same, what happens is you're going to make your painting look all nice and professional, and the whole thing will be nice and done so you don't have to put a frame around it. So if you want, as you go along, you can just paint those edges. And again, we're going to use the same brush for the next step. So once you've got the sky all nice and painted in, you can wash and dry this big brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're doing for the next step is we are painting our ground. We're going to be using our big brush, and we're going to use black paint. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to do an uneven line where it meets the sky. So I'm just going to kind of wiggle my brush. If you want to put little hills in there, feel free to do so, but you need to have the whole ground in your sky. You don't want to see any of your pencil marks. So if you want there to be a little bit higher spots or lower spots, that's fine. Just make sure it's all within that sky. And then once you've got that, the top part of it, Then you can just paint the rest of it in with a solid color black. It doesn't need any special brush stroke. You just want to get all of that paint on there and make sure you've covered the whole area. And then when you're done with this step, we're going to be switching brushes to our small brush. So I'm just going to finish up here. Then I'm going to have a bite of my cookie. And then I'm going to get ready for the next step with my small brush. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we are painting our tree trunks and our branches. So I'm going to have one huge tree over here, and then I'm going to have a couple of smaller ones way off in the distance. So I'm going to do my big one first. So this tree that we're painting is representational of an African tree that's called, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, the Boabab tree. That's probably the wrong pronunciation, but it's a really cool tree. It's tall, it's kind of flat on the top, and I think if Disneyland has taught me correctly, this tree symbolizes that it's the tree of life, and not just in Disneyland, but I think it's a symbolic type tree. So it's very cool that we get to paint this in our African sunset. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to be using just black paint. I'm going to be putting my trunk in place. It's going to be a little bit wider at the bottom, then it's going to get a little bit narrower, and then the branches, they come off in like a V or an upside down triangle. So they're going to be really narrow here, and then they branch out really far because these trees are almost flat on the top, and then they get skinnier as they come in. So here we go. I'm going to start with black paint. I'm going to have this one somewhere about here. So I'm just going to kind of get this on here, make it a little bit wider at the bottom, and then I'll make it a little bit more narrow as it starts to come up, maybe about 2 or so inches. And now I'm going to start branching out. My tree is going to come off of my canvas on the left-hand side, but I am going to have the majority of it showing on the right-hand side. And I'm going to have these top branches coming all the way over to here. So if you want to just kind of mark as far out as you want some of these branches to go, that's going to kind of help you to create the shape of the tree. Now that I've got those kind of 3 branches in through there, now I can just start to finish the rest of the branches. And don't worry about these being perfect, because you're going to have a whole bunch of leaves and stuff that are going to be covering up most of these, but you do want to have a lot of little ones in between. So as you're painting these, just know once you get into this interior, you can certainly just have fun and just make a whole bunch of branches crisscrossing over one another. Maybe you've got some wriggly ones that come off the side that we'll see at the end. Maybe you've got a whole bunch in through here. But again, you're going to have tons of leaves and stuff up at the top. So don't even worry if this comes out, you know, if your leaf or your branches are perfect or anything like that. You just want to have that the idea that they kind of splay out in that direction. And then once you've got enough on this tree, we're going to go and do a couple of smaller trees here. Just make sure I've got enough paint on these. And then let's see. Now when you're doing your other trees, just be mindful you're going to have some animals that are going to be crossing your desert land. Is it desert? It's, yeah, savanna. Yeah, it's hot desert land. Right, I think. I know so much about geography. All right, so here we go, and topographical lands and stuff. So I'm going to put these way off in the distance. I think I'm going to have a little tiny one right in through here. So I'm just going to kind of do my trunk, and then I'll just kind of do a couple of little branches that are coming out and almost, you know, just splaying out. So they're almost like flat on the top. And then maybe I'll have one over here. Maybe this one's going to be a little bit closer. So this one's going to be bigger than this one. And again, I'm just going to kind of have those branches more wide at the top. And if you need to, one of my tricks to getting skinnier lines is I take my brush and I spin it on the side of my palette, and that's going to give me nice skinny lines. And you could add a touch of water to your paint as well. So when you're doing these tinier trees, just know that you could certainly do that if your brush is not small enough for you. And then maybe I'll have another one somewhere in through here. And then we are going to be switching brushes back to our big brush. So once you have enough trees in your beautiful landscape, you can put this small brush away in your water cup, take a bite of your cookie, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to be doing for the next step is we're painting our leaves. I'm going to be using my big brush, and I'm going to be using black and brown paint. So how I'm going to do this so I don't get lost in my trees is I'm definitely going to make sure that I make the top ones out wider. So I'm actually going to do the exterior first, and then I can just have fun on the interior, and the little trees they're not going to be hard to do. I just do the top of them first, and then I get into the rest. So I'm going to have black and brown on my brush at the same time. And what I'm going to do is I know that I want this one to be really far out, so I'm just going to kind of dot my branches in through there, or my leaves, I should say. And these trees kind of have almost like, not necessarily rows of leaves, but definitely you can see like spaces in between these like layers of the leaves, which is kind of neat. So I am just kind of getting this exterior to make sure I keep it in this triangle type shape. I'm reloading. Sorry, I got a cookie stuck in my throat. I'm reloading with brown and black. And these trees are the ones that the giraffes are going to eat out of. So we just got to make sure that we've given it enough leaves so the giraffes have plenty of stuff to eat, because they definitely have a difficult time. They can eat leaves up high, and they can eat leaves on the ground, but the ones in the trees are much easier for them because their necks are so like high up, it's tough for them to eat off the ground. So we want to make sure that we put plenty of leaves in this tree so we don't have our giraffe doesn't need to put his feet out in order to go to the ground. So we're gonna feed our giraffes well on this painting. So I got the outside now. I'm just kind of moving my way up the tree. Once I get to this tippy top, I'm really gonna put a ton of leaves up here. I know again that I want mine to go off the canvas, so I'm making sure I have plenty of leaves, and I've given it the information that we've got almost like these tiers or layers of these leaves. And I'm kind of, when I go towards the edge, just using the tip of my brush. That way I can kind of control how much I have. And I'm thinking that's looking pretty good. I got a lot of leaves on there, so our giraffes will eat well. And you can just, dot in between if you want to. Just make sure you've got plenty of space covered in through here. And once you've got this tree done, then you can just move on to the next ones. And I'm just going to use the little corner of my brush for the smaller ones. And I'm just kind of going to dot very gently just so I can get the shape of this on here. And again, they're wider at the top, and then they get a little bit more narrow as they go in towards the base of the tree. And you can really, dot it as much as you want, but I like to make sure that I can see some of my branches through there, so I'm definitely gonna make sure that happens. And then once you've got this step done, we are going to be switching brushes to our small brush, so you can get ready for that. All right, so we are on to painting our giraffes. So I'm going to use my small brush, and I'm only going to use black paint. So when we do this, I do recommend that you take a drop of water and thin out your black paint a little bit, just so it's, like an ink consistency. And if I'm going to just be using black paint and just going for it, if you feel that you want to practice, you can certainly pull out your pencil and do the same shapes that I'm doing with pencil. And then once you get it into shape, you can use black paint. But I'm just one of those painters that just goes for it. So I'm going to show you how to do it. And we're just going to paint a couple of giraffes. So I've got thinned out black paint on my brush. I am going to want one of my giraffes to kind of be able to reach these leaves up here. So I know that maybe my head is going to be about here. I want the first mark I'm going to make to be about halfway between the head and my land. So maybe somewhere about here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself a circle. So my circle is going to be about, I would say, the size of maybe a dime. Maybe a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller. You can decide that all on your own. And once I've got that little circle in, I'm going to make another circle that's going to be smaller, and it's going to be a little bit down to the right of that one. So something right about here. You want it smaller and you want it to be a little bit lower than this one. And then I'm going to connect those two. I'm going to connect this one right here with a little arcing motion like that. And then I'm going to connect these two with the same downward arcing motion like that, and then just paint them in. You just created the body of your giraffe. So now that you have the body, we got to put some legs on the body. And I don't want us to be terribly overwhelmed with having 4 legs in any complicated position. So what I'm going to have you do is we're going to make a triangle from the rear end here, a long triangle. That's going to come maybe about 2/3 of the way down towards the ground. So we start here like that. It's a long skinny triangle. Here's the next one. Then once you've got it like that, then just bring that skinny line all the way down to the ground. I need to reload with a little bit of paint. I'm running out of paint. And once you've got that, you're going to come up maybe about to that 3/3 of the way mark and just make another little line like this. Now you've given the illusion of 2 back legs that are walking. So I'm going to do the same thing with the front legs. So I'm going to bring this right from the chest part. I'm going to bring this down in just a long triangle, something like that. And you don't need to come into the body too far. This is what we're painting, the thigh of the giraffe. Something like that. And then once I've got it pretty long, then I'm just going to continue that line all the way down to the ground. And now if I want that second leg to be showing, I start somewhere around here and just bring it out just a little bit. And now you've got the other foot walking. Now we got to do the head and the neck. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a vertical line from where the neck would start, somewhere in through here, up to however high I want it to be, or down to, whatever works for you. So I'm just going to start with a vertical line like that. Now I'm going to connect the bottom part into the body. So I, in essence, kind of widen it a little bit like that. And then I do the same thing right here. I don't want this super dented part, so I'm just going to kind of connect that like that. And then I'm going to, if you need to widen the neck, you can certainly widen it if you want to, if it feels too skinny for you. I actually think I want to bump out his butt too. You can make any adjustments you want. There we go. It looked a little too skinny, like he hadn't had enough leaves for the day. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a small circle at the top of the head. So something like this, a little circle at the top of the head. And then I'm going to make a little oval coming down at the bottom right of that circle. So a little oval coming down like this. Something like that. Now I need 2 ears and 2 horns. So I'm going to do my little ears out the sides. 1 ear, 2 ear, and then my little horns are going to go straight up from the head. 1, 2. You could even put a little bump at the top of the horns. Then he needs a little tail, so be careful where you put your tail. It could look wrong if you put it in the wrong spot. So I'm gonna come wherever the butt is, come straight down. Don't go out, you go straight down. So if this is where my butt is, I'm gonna come straight down like this, and then I'm gonna put a little bit of fluff at the end of that tail. And then I'm gonna do my second one, and my second one's gonna be a little bit smaller. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna do 2 circles. So I'm gonna start one a little bit lower than that one. So something like this. And then I'm gonna put the second circle is gonna be a little bit smaller and a little bit to the right and below, a little bit lower, smaller, and to the right. Then I'm gonna connect the top 2 with a downward arc and the bottom 2 with a downward arc. So you're making almost like the shape of like a kidney or a peanut when you do that. Then I'm gonna do my legs. So the back leg, again, I'm gonna start with a really long, skinny triangle. And then I'm gonna bring that all the way down to the ground. And then I'll make a little leg coming off that bottom part. And then I'll do the same thing with the front ones. A really long triangle, and then I bring it straight down, and then I kick out the other foot somewhere about here. Then I'm going to do my vertical line for my neck, and this one I'm going to have him look in the other direction. So this one's going to look at its mama. So I've got my vertical line, and then I'm going to make sure it blends with the back. So I just kind of bring that a little bit out. And then I'm gonna make sure this doesn't look too indented right here. So I'm just gonna get rid of that a little bit. Now I'm gonna do my circle for the head. Cute little circle here. And then I'm gonna do its mouth area. Hold on, I'm just widening the neck a little bit. So when you do the mouth area, little fun fact for you. So I learned recently that giraffes make the noise of a goat. I don't know if you knew that or not, but it's really funny because it's this big, huge animal. It makes this little bat noise. It's really funny. That might have been a sheep. Not quite sure. Sheep and goats, I think they sound kind of the same. But anyways, so I'm going to do the muzzle part or the mouth part down on this side. So I'm just going down to the left. And now I'm going to do my little ears that are going to be the same as the other one. So I'm going to kick them out, one there, and then I'm going to do little horns. So I'm going to do one tiny horn there, one tiny horn there. And then, oh, it needs a tail. Hold on, needs a tail. So straight down from the bum, like that. And then I'll just make a little fluffy part at the end. And then we're gonna use the same brush for the next step. So when you got your giraffes all nice and painted in, you can wash it or not. It's gonna be the same brush, same color, but take a bite of your cookie and just get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna be doing for the next step is we are painting our rhino, otherwise known as the rhinoceros, which sounds like a dinosaur, but its name really means nose horn. Chew on that for a minute. All right, so we're gonna use just our black paint. I'm gonna do it similar to how we did our giraffes with just shapes, and we're gonna connect the shapes, and then by the time we're done, hopefully we'll have something that resembles a rhinoceros. So I'm gonna use my small brush. I'm using black paint. When I was kind of researching for this painting, to me, the rhinoceroses were about half the height of the giraffes, but if yours isn't that high or low, it's okay because it could be closer or farther away, but I'm gonna do mine almost that height. And I'm gonna start with 2 circles. I know when I make these circles, I want them kind of close to the ground because the rhino's legs are really short. But I still need to put a belly. We're gonna be doing 2 circles and then we're gonna connect them with a belly. So when you do this, you want them close to the ground, but you also want to save room for a little bit of an arcing belly and a couple of legs. So here we go. I'm going to make mine, I would say, maybe about, I don't know, almost an inch above my land, or 1/2 inch to 1 inch, and my circle is going to be about the size of a nickel. So somewhere around that size. And then I'm going to just paint it in black. So black nickel size circle. And then I'm going to do a second one that is going to be about half the distance of that circle away. So maybe just a little bit away. It's going to be the same kind of circle. If it's not exactly the same, it's okay. But a similar size would work. So I've got myself 2 circles that look pretty similar to one another. Now I'm going to connect the bottom of them. This is going to be the belly. So when I go to connect it, I'm going to actually bring it into a downward arcing motion, something like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing up top with a downward little arc like that. And then you can just paint it in. So we've just created the majority of the body. Now what we're going to do is we are going to make our back legs. So what I'm going to do is from the rear end here, I'm going to come down towards the ground, but I'm going to pull it in a little bit like this. And then I'm going to kick it back out like that. And then I'm going to come a little bit to the left of that and just make a diagonal line and color that in. Then I'm going to make a diagonal line from here to the ground. And then I'm going to make almost a straight line, but it comes a little bit to the left and a little bit in, like making a V, and then color that in. Something like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and make the front legs. So I'm going to come from this front area right here, and I'm just going to kind of bring that in a little bit and down. Then I'm going to go a little bit to the right of that and bring it down. So it's a little bit wider as it hits the body than it is at the foot. They do have like wide feet, almost like elephant feet, but ours are being hidden in the grass. If yours were really tall, you could definitely kick out the feet part if you felt like you needed to, if the legs were really long. And then this next one, I'm going to just bring from this area here, I'm going to bring a diagonal line like that. And then I'm going to go a little bit a ways and bring another one like that. And then just color that in. So now I've got my legs. I need to do my tail. So I guess we could save the tail, but I'm ready to do the tail now. So I think actually I'm going to bring this back leg out just a little bit more. There we go. So I'm going to bring my tail down. It's kind of similar to the giraffe's tail, where it just kind of comes down with a little fluff on the end of it. Something like that. Oh, it almost looks like an elephant right now. Sorry. It looks like an elephant going that way. Interesting. Anyways, we're going to make it into a rhino. So now what I'm going to do, I want this front circle part or bump to be a little bit taller than this back one. So I'm going to, because the rhinos have this big like hump behind their head. So I'm going to just bump this up just a little bit like that. And then I'm going to come down this front side. And you'll see this. I'm going to come out like this. Like this. And then I'm going to bring it down almost like a little pig snout coming down towards the ground. You want to come really close to the ground. You kick it out just a little bit. And then you're going to bring it back up and meet the body. Like this. Something like that. And then you just color it in. And now I'm going to do the horns. So rhinos, there's different kinds of rhinoceroses. Some have 1 horn, some have 2 horns. I'm going to do the 2-horned kind. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to go up a little bit from the end of the snout. And this is a big horn. So it can come out really, really far. You want it more narrow at the end and thicker when it hits the face, but you don't want it at the end of the head. You want it just a little bit higher. So I'm going to start out. I'm not going to press hard at the tip, and then I'm going to curve it a little bit. When I'm close to the head, that's when I'm going to push a little bit harder. So here I go. And then I push a little bit harder with a little bit of a curve. And there's my first rhino horn. And I'm going to make the second one up a little bit and a little bit smaller. So here we go. And I brace myself. You can brace yourself with your pinky or on the table or on your easel or something. There's my second one. Now I need a couple of little ears. So the ears, they're not going to come up here. They're going to come somewhere right about here. And they just kind of look like little pig ears or horse ears, but they're down a little bit lower. So here we go. I'm going to make one right about here. And then I'm going to have one on the other side of the head. And that is my rhino. If you need to do any little adjustments, feel free to do so. We're going to use this same brush for the next step, and you don't even have to wash it. So just take a bite of your cookie and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're doing for the next step is we are painting our grass. I'm going to use my small brush. I'm going to use black paint. And my main goal for doing this grass is to just ruffle up the bottom, and if I needed to hide any feet or anything like that because they didn't come out exactly the way that I wanted to, this would be a great step to do so. So I just have black on my brush, and I'm really just kind of bringing it up in different lengths. So you can do little tiny ones, you can do taller ones, just you want to make sure that they look inconsistent. So you don't want to have the same size the whole time. Maybe at some points you just kind of wiggle your brush a little bit. When you get to the rhinoceros, because he's so close to the ground, don't do tall grass. You just do little tiny bits of grass just to ruffle up the land in through there. And then you can have them higher in other places if you want to, but when you get to, you make them as tall as you want. You could even put little bushes or, whatever you want to. And then we have one more little step to go. We're going to use this same brush for the next step. So once you've got some great grass in through here, you can, we're going to use this brush, and we don't need to wash it. We're going to use the same colors. So you can just get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're doing for the next step is we are painting some birds. We're just going to do some nice, simple silhouetted birds. I'm going to use my small brush. I'm going to use black paint. And when you're painting these, you can imagine them to be whatever kind of bird you want them to be. They could be, condors or hawks or vultures or maybe even a crane or two. So you just have fun with your imagination. I'm going to do just a simple kind of style. They can go in any direction. You can have as many of them as you want. I do suggest that you do different sizes, so that way some will look close and some will look far away. So here we go. I'm just going to kind of get one or two on here so you can see what I'm talking about. I don't push hard with my brush either. So I'm just going to kind of do almost like a really loose M or like a check mark. So a check mark would have maybe one side longer than the other. You could do like little X's, like an airplane, kind of a diagonal kind of X. That's going to make it look like it's got some wings, a head, and a tail. So you could certainly do itty bitty bitty ones off in the distance. That's going to make it look like, they're flying, out of the sun and into the darkness. So just really have fun with these. Make as many as you want. Just have them in different directions and, just have fun with it. Maybe you have some flying out of your tree. Maybe you have some surrounding your animals, hovering over, an area in the land that they're just waiting to go and eat whatever is down there. So just, have fun. If you can make them look different from one another, that works out well too. These two apparently are flying in a synchronized way. But again, just have fun with it. And when you get done with these, we have the final step of any painting, and it's going to be done with this small brush, so you can just get ready for that step. All right, so we are on to the final step of any painting, which is to sign it. So I usually sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right corner. I'm going to be using my small brush. I usually sign mine in black, but I can't paint black on black, so I'm going to do a complementary color from the painting. So I'm going to be using orange, yellow, and white on my brush at the same time. You could certainly do yours with whatever color you want. I do my initials, but you could do your first name or the date or a symbol. Whatever you want to use as your identifying mark is totally fine. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you love your African safari landscape as much as I do. I hope you enjoyed your cookies, and I look forward to painting and eating cookies with you again sometime.
Yum yums.